And they also went to court because of a dismal performance in local governments in that town.
South Africans are increasingly taking matters into their own hands as municipalities and local governments fail to provide basic services which the Constitution mandates them to. Here to talk about the increase in incidents of citizens groups taking over municipal functions and holding local officials to account is Gerbrandt van Heerden. Now, Gerbrandt, tell us, what are the responsibilities of municipalities and what is the state of basic services in South Africa?
Hello, Nick. So the South African Constitution obligates local governments to provide adequate services to communities. Now, these services include quality access to water, electricity, transport, and waste removal infrastructure. And unfortunately, in the last few years, we've seen a dismal decline in the provision of quality of services. In fact, in 2018, Ratings Africa produced their Municipal Financial Stability Index. And in that index, they were able to determine that the overall majority of municipalities, in fact, 3/4 of municipalities, were in financial distress. And this has major repercussions for service delivery. And we've also seen from our own quality of life report that we've released earlier this year that in some provinces, there is absolute decay in the provision of basic service delivery. So for example, only 2/3 of households in Limpopo have access to a basic sanitation facility. And more shockingly, 2/3 of households in Mpumalanga and in the Free State have either irregular or no waste removal. So this has ultimately led to a rise in service delivery protests. Now, Municipal IQ have tracked service delivery protests in the last few years. And what they saw, for example, in 2019, halfway through 2019, the number of service delivery protests that took place already exceeded the total number of service delivery protests in 2016. In 2016, there were 137 service delivery protests, but halfway through 2019, there were already 140 service delivery protests. So there is ultimate decay in the provision of basic services across municipalities in this country. And that is why we started to see this skyrocketing of private initiatives taking place. People and ratepayer associations taking matters into their own hands, taking local governments to court, and trying to gain access over certain municipal functions in order to ensure that communities live in a safe, healthy environment.
Well, that really does sound dire, and it's something I can relate to personally, having lived in a rural Eastern Cape Town for a few years of my life. So let me ask you, Gerbrandt, what have ratepayers associations and residents associations actually been doing in order to improve the quality of service delivery in their towns?
Yes, so I think the biggest example that I can mention, which was also a very historic moment for South Africa, is the High Court ruling in Makunda, formerly known as Grahamstown. Now, there you had the Unemployment People's Movement, who brought an application to court demanding that the Municipal Council of Makunda be dissolved because the council has really failed dismally in the maintenance of infrastructure in that town. And what happened was the court ruled in their favor. The court ruled that the Municipal Council of Makunda should be dissolved. And this has had repercussions for many municipalities. many resident associations and tax ratepayer associations have found inspiration from that court ruling. So, for example, in the Northwest, in the town of Koster, you had Kagetleng River Concerned Citizens Association, and they also went to court because of a dismal performance in local governments in that town. And the court ruled that the association may take control of the town's sewage works and water works. In another example, you have the Mzanduzi Association of Ratepayers, Residents and Civics, or MARC for short. And they are currently considering legal options in order to gain more responsibility or gain more power over certain municipal functions, because Mzanduzi municipality, which is where Pietermaritzburg is located, has really seen a decay in the provision of services. There are times when that city goes for days without electricity. And then you also have the Ratepayers Association of Durban, as well as the Umdoni Action Group, which is based in Scottsburg. And these associations have threatened with rate revolts. UAG has also stated that they are not only considering refusing to pay rates, but also considering other options as to how they can provide services themselves. You also had the Harry Smith Water Heroes. They are currently fixing the water system and the sewage system in Harry Smith, which has come under administration. And then you also have the Tide of Neglect campaign, which has also been launched in Scottsburg, where because of that town's failure in maintaining and keeping up road infrastructure, you've really seen the quality of roads there decline with potholes everywhere. And this Tide of Neglect campaign has pushed to highlight that the serious problems that are visible in that town. So you really have all these private initiatives that are taking place, and people really trying to become independent from local governments. And that seriously points to a decline in trust in not only the national government, but local governments as well.
Well, there really is a long list of towns that you went through there. I mean, it almost sounds like this is happening across the country. But as you mentioned, a very large percentage of municipalities in South Africa have these kinds of issues, which is not good at all. So a final question, Gerbrandt, what do these examples tell us about the general public's trust in their local governments?
It shows that people have completely lost faith in government to provide adequate services to the areas in which they reside. And you can actually, this is reflected in the poor participation that we've seen in both the national and municipal elections. We've seen a consistent decline in people going out to vote. In fact, there's an ever-increasing block of eligible voters which have refused to register in South Africa because they don't believe it will make any difference. And Ipsos has done a poll a few years ago, which showed that about 30% of South Africans don't believe that any political party at the moment represents their views. And a similar proportion was visible for both or for all three big political parties, the ANC, DA, and EFF, where around 30% of their own supporters said that they don't think that their political party is capable of fixing all of the problems in the country. But that doesn't mean because people are voting less and less in South Africa that they're not participating in in South Africa's democracy. In fact, as I've mentioned earlier, we've seen a rise in service delivery protests, and it was also noted by Municipal IQ that these service delivery protests are becoming ever more violent. And so people are really voting with their feet these days. So when people can't afford to immigrate out of South Africa, they will immigrate in a way that they become independent from government institutions. And that's why we've seen the creation of so many ratepayer and resident associations taking matters into their own hands. And unless government improves their ability to improve the lives of South Africans, we're going to see an increase in protests, and we're going to see an increase in people moving away from the government as much as possible.
Well, as they say, Gerbrandt, people vote with their feet. And I think that's a great metaphor for what that is. Thanks very much for talking to me today about this. I'm sure many of our viewers who perhaps live in some of these towns in South Africa will know precisely what you're talking about. Just a final word from us here at the CRA. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. For access to the CRA's 30-day free trial for more strategic risk advice, please follow the link in the description, and there you can gain access to the 30-day free trial. From us, until next time.